Hi, I'm Bill Pello, and today I want to talk about active participation in the in online lessons. Okay. Start with just a very quick poll about your feelings about your level, the level of your students' participation in your classes. And in this poll, it should appear on your screen soon. You can choose as many answers as you would like. So I've just launched the poll. How do you feel about the level of student participation in most of your online classes? I'd like to keep this poll open for about 30 seconds.
Bill, do you give us instant feedback to the results of that poll?
I will. Yes. Now, as the host and co-host, I think I can't take the poll myself. We're up to 20 responses, and that was a minute. So I'm going to end the poll now and share the results.
Oh.
So my own answers are, well, each one of these is my answer depending on which course I'm thinking about. Okay. For some classes, I was really very satisfied. Others disappointed. I'm glad to see some people are proud of how much participation they had and pleased. It's good to have positive results here. I hope also that during this presentation we can share ideas so we can learn from each other. Here's my basic plan today. I want to start by talking about one type of active participation, which is motivating students to pay attention by getting them all to respond to a question. In other words, active listening, active participation that way. And then, so I'd like to show a bit of a presentation that might take 20 minutes with examples and some polling during it. And I'd also like to, after about 20 minutes or so, open up for discussion so we can share ideas and expand on these ideas. So I showed this picture when in my video abstract, and the colors kind of faded out, but this is green, red, orange, and blue. And this is a 4-color answer paddle developed by Dr. Colin Wolfe at the University of Toronto Medical School. And he had large classes, like 250 students in his classes. And what he'd do would be to ask a question based on the previous 10 or 15 minutes lecture and have the students raise up a color in response to the multiple choice question. And he said that the students reported it helped them stay awake, it helped them pay attention, and as far as the teacher goes, the teacher could see how many students understood the concepts they were talking about. And because they're holding it near themselves, they can also see which students need help or which students have the answer all the time. I use a set of these in my face-to-face classes. This is a photo taken by Paul Shimizu. Paul and I made these paddles together, and from this website, captor.me, we have activities, and you can download a PDF to print it out. print out and make these paddles with your students if you're going to be face-to-face. Here's an example of how I use it. This is Smart Choice 3 from Oxford University Press. Go over the grammar, then give the students a few minutes to write. Here it's between for and since. And what I would do in my class would then be put A and B on the board, hand out these paddles. The students all have their own, and I would just say, okay, number 2, and they would raise up A or B for or since. Now, obviously, this isn't the picture from this particular activity because everyone here is holding up C and D. But that's what it would look like. Everyone would hold up the paddle near their face. In our classes now on Zoom, what we can do is launch a poll and ask the students, number 2, have you been studying Japanese many years? A for since and B for. And surprise, surprise, English teachers, most of us got this one correct. Now, I just like to give some background. At JALT Call 2002, I showed this system for that I developed used for answers on K-tie phones. This here is a multiple choice question. The biggest challenge for this was word wrapping. Screens were different sizes, and the application had to create the word wrapping automatically. Here's another activity, multiple choice. This had several different kinds of activities all made for those small phones. In 2010, I made a new system called MORS, Mobile Audience Response System, made for classes, for classrooms. And again, multiple choice questions. Now I developed this mainly for iPod Touch. This is from pictures from a presentation I gave in 2013. And this is a basic level business English class. The students bring their own earphones and they would listen to listening activity and answer the questions in their book. And after they answer the questions, they would log in to the system on the iPod Touch, and then they would write a shortcut, which is a number that would correspond to a quiz. As you see, this is written in Japanese. There is a button for English. This system you could plug in Spanish, Korean, German, French. So I would tell them 5544 is the shortcut for this activity. They would put that in, and then they would have the quiz. And as you can see, the quiz is based on what's in the textbook. And there might be extra questions for comprehension as well. So this is part carrot, part stick, in that it forces the students to actually do the work I asked them to do, which was a challenge in this basic level class for management majors. And it also is, that's the stick, and the carrot is they get points for this. This is their a quiz point. So anyway, this is my background of using those kind of systems in class. Now, while I was developing that in 2010, uh, I talk about it with Paul Shimizu, who's here in the audience. Good to see you, Paul. Um, and he would say that it was a terrible idea to have students put their face in the screen during the class. They should be looking up at the teacher, and he had a great point. But I said, Paul, you missed the point. The point is not the screen or whatever. The point is to um, give an answer, and it could be a colored piece of paper or something like that. And that's when Paul and I started talking and ended up with these kind of things that we made, right? Um, I think on Zoom, if you could see everyone's face, if everyone's cameras are on, then they could still do some sort of system like that, where um, if they had like origami paper that was a certain color, they could hold it up as an answer, or they could write like A, B, C, D on a piece of paper or beer coasters or whatever. And when you asked a question, they could hold it up so that you could see it. Um, However, in my classes, because of bandwidth issues, because of Wi-Fi issues, and a lot of other things, most students keep their cameras off the entire time, unless we go into breakout rooms. Then they turn it on and talk to the person. Um, but like this, my best bet is to use Zoom polls or to send students to Google Classroom to do things there. And I use a mixture of both of those. Okay, so let me show you a couple of activities like I use in the class. A unit in Smart Choice 2, it's about degrees of certainty. Like, you must be kidding, right? That can't be true. And I thought, the what's in the book was kind of hard to understand the meaning based on just the text in the book. So I came up with some pictures, and I show this picture. And when we're in face-to-face classes, I show this up on the projector, and I say, look at this guy, look at his tattoo. What's this tattoo? And they all yell, Superman. And it's like, yeah, it's Superman. And I was like, wow, I think that must have hurt, right? That's a big tattoo. And so what do you think? You think this guy likes Superman? I go, yeah, yeah. In the Zoom, it's really hard to get that kind of response from people. So you end up sort of talking to yourself, right? And here's where I say, yeah, look at the tattoo. I'm sure he likes Superman. I'm sure. So then this comes up, and then I can put the A or B poll up, right? And say, what do you think? He likes Superman very much. He must or he can't. A is must, B is can't, right? And one of the problems with these polls is that on certain devices, the poll will cover your slide completely, right? So it's good to give students a warning that this is going to happen, right? And then you end the poll. And at this point, I have the choice of sending students into breakout rooms to talk about how they answered, or sharing the result right away. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, he must love Superman very much, right? He must love Superman very much. And then I show them the answer so they're absolutely clear that that was the answer, right? And go through a couple more like that. Look at these girls. What do you think? Do you think they're just friends? Do the poll. I can tell the students, please write your answer down and then show the poll. Give the answer. Right? They can't be just friends. Look at them. What do you think? Are they twins? You know, I'm certain. I'm certain. 99% sure, right? They must be twins. They must be twins. So that's one thing. The next thing I want to show you. Now, this comes after a listening. The students have done a dictation already in the Google Classroom doc. I've already shown the answers to the dictation where they wrote a couple of the sentences. And what we see here on the screen is the end of one of the 3 conversations. So I just wanted to focus on some of the activity, some of the vocabulary in the end of this conversation. I've already looked at drove me to the hospital.
It was. But then my instructor helped me. In fact, he carried me up the hill and then drove me to the hospital.
Good.
Yes, very good. He was a very nice guy.
And?
And well, let's say I know him a little better now.
Okay. So he carried her up. What happened was she had a kayak accident. She was carrying her kayak and fell down, and he's the kayak teacher, and so he carried her up the hill. So what I wanted to focus on with this was, let's say I know him a little better now. So I copied this from the Japanese dictionary that comes with your Mac. And the question is, she said, well, let's say I know him a little better now. What do you think she's implying? So at this point, instead of asking students to just write it freely, I gave an A, B, C, and D choice. She's implying that she took another class with him, or he told her about himself at the hospital. She learned his full name, or they're in a relationship now. Then A, B, C, D as a poll. At that point, after the poll, I put them into a breakout room, asked them to discuss their answer. And some research has shown that after a student has made a decision or made a commitment with an A, B, C, or a D, then they're more willing to speak when they are either called on or asked to talk in a pair or a small group. And then they come back, and of course, I tell them, yeah, she's implying that they're in a relationship now. And when you do the next reading, the next listening, she explains that actually they got married. Right? So just to recap, A to D multiple choice, you can pose the question, show the choices, give a poll, do a breakout room, return and show the answer. Okay. When students are in a breakout room, one thing you can do is join. You can go into the breakout rooms, of course, but going into each breakout room takes time. And in my class, I have 20 breakout rooms because I have 40 students and they're in pairs. And it takes a lot of time for me to click, leave the room, click to go into the room, leave the room, go into the room. And every time you click leave the room, you're really in danger of clicking end meeting, right? So one thing I do here is I join the Zoom session on my iPhone as well. And you can see Pello iPhone, that's me. All of these 20s are student numbers. That's the way they're required to put their name for Zoom. They just put their number like that, and a kanji from their surname. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show a video of me moving from room 16 to room 15. So just watch this. I go down to room there, and then boom, I'm in the other room. Okay, so I'm going in with my phone. And I just find that a much faster way to go in and just talk to the students or just listen in on them. And they can see that I'm there. But this was a very fast way to do it. One thing, note that if you join twice from the same Zoom account, that can disable polling. So join from your phone, but from like a personal account. Okay, that's a better way to do that. Okay, I just have a few more things to talk about here. Now, Eric Mazur is a physics professor at Harvard, and he created a method of teaching called interactive teaching, where he would ask a question and then ask the students to think about the problem and then commit to an answer. So the kind of question would be, because his students are really smart. They're studying physics at Harvard, so they can remember, force equals mass times acceleration. They can remember all of these things, but he found that they were having trouble with the basic concepts. So he would ask a question like, if a really big truck hits a small car, which one exerts more force? A, the truck. B, the car. C, it's the same. Okay. And then have them think about it, talk about it, and then commit to an answer. And he can see on the clickers, or before we started using clickers, he used colored paper. If a certain percentage of them are wrong, then he asks them to go and find a student with a different answer and talk about it. Each person sort of defends their own response and tries to convince the other person. And for him as a teacher, that can help him to hear like their misconceptions. It's like, yeah, the big truck is bigger, so it must have more force, and that sort of thing, right? After they've talked, students vote again, A, B, C, and D. And what he finds is that students tend to be correct the second time. So this is an interactive teaching method that is used a lot in science classes, in biology, asking basic questions about concepts. Now we can take this and go back to the Minju example, right? And use that sort of process in our own teaching, I think. An alternative way to do it is to ask the question and then do the breakout room. When they return, then show the A through D answers, and the students can pick the answer closest to the one you talked about, or ask the question, breakout room, assign a spokesperson to report the answer. This kind of motivates students to, well, they're going to talk because someone's going to be responsible for talking and giving the answers to the rest of the class. They come back and the spokespeople can all write the answers in chat or have them report in a random order. At this point, after these two, you can send them back into the breakout room to talk again. And then when they come back, maybe they have an answer that's closer to the correct answer. The last thing I just want to say in the slideshow before we come back, Nearpod, and Todd's going to talk about this on Wednesday at 11:30, has a lot of advantages over Zoom polls in that when you give a poll through Nearpod, you can see who has answered and see how they answered. And there are lots of other activities that are pretty cool in Nearpod. So I think this is another option for us to do. Okay. So at this point, I've talked a lot, and what I'd like to do is put you into breakout rooms for you to talk about your own, like what things that I talked about do you already use in your classes, or how can you adapt some of that to classes if you're going back online again in the next semester, okay? I'll put you into a breakout room for, let's say about 5 minutes. And when we come back, we might not have enough time to all have each group respond, but when we come back, I'm going to ask people to volunteer to talk about things they do in their own classes. Okay? Okay. See you in 5 minutes. Okay, well, welcome back. Welcome back. So at this point, maybe Jose, if there have been questions, and then also I'd like to invite comments from people after that, maybe through hand raising. But first, Jose, were there?
There were a couple, not great big questions. And as Bill said, if you have a question, please use the raise hand button in the participants list, and we can see who gets to take the first turns. But from the chat, let's see, from Kevin Bodwell, about 5 minutes after you started, Bill, how to measure participation in multiple Zoom rooms?
No idea.
How about monitor?
You can only sort of go in, dip in, and check some of the people, and then go out. And
Okay,
as I showed you with using my with the phone or another thing, you can do it pretty quickly. Another way to do it is to have the students record themselves in the breakout room. But in only one of my classes do I have really long breakout rooms. That's when the students are working on creating something together, and then they're in a breakout room for about 10 minutes. But when they come out, they've created a Google document. So their Google document is sort of proof that they were doing something. But as far as like, it's not quite the same as when you're in a classroom and you can see students who are working together and see the ones who are ignoring each other. I don't think we don't really have the same thing in Zoom.
Okay.
Anyone else have something to add to that?
Well, I am going to try this term for the first time, and I'm sorry I haven't thought about this in 2 or 3 weeks. But they'll keep a learning journal, diary of some kind, and they'll rate themselves, like how often did I speak and that sort of thing. And well, I don't know how it's going to go, but that's what I'm going to try.
I gave the students a poll and asked them, how much English did your partner speak? And, or, you know, how much English did you speak together? I think, and in one class I have, the one that's using Smart Choice 3, it's pretty high. It's a high number, you know. And in other classes, I'm sure it's pretty low.
I just want to remind everyone that because we have quite a few participants here and I can only see 25 participants on my screen, really want to ask you to use the participants list raise hand button. if you raise your hand only in the screen, I might not pick it up because it's on the other screen. And if I stay only on the one screen with people raising their hands, it kind of prejudices the actual questioning to the one page. One more question, Bill, from Richard Bailey. Mandatory attendance and screens on or optional? I think Richard was asking for you to give a bit more detail as to what kind of situation you were teaching in at Kindai.
Yeah, it's mandatory attendance, of course, unless students have an excuse. Students usually send email to me if they have an excuse, like their Wi-Fi's out, or so they'll contact me about that. So we take attendance in the Zoom session, but cameras are off because, well, it's their choice, but also it's an issue of bandwidth for the students. A lot of them don't have Wi-Fi built into their apartments. They didn't plan on needing it.
Richard Bailey, follow up? Nope. Okay, Paul Shimizu. You're muted, Paul. There you go.
Yes, as I explained to the members in the breakout room, I was rather strict, and I forced my students to have their cameras on, and I also forced them to show their face. Now, some of them, very, very few of them, put like half a face in, so they were kind of like that, and the heads down. And you do get that behavior sometimes in the class, but I mean, if you're running a class, you don't allow the students to come in and then turn your back to the class, or put their head in a book, or put a bag over their head. I know, and some students put masks on and so on. But I even went so far as to say, look, if you're in a room by yourself, don't put a mask on, please. I mean, I need to see. For my part, I need to see, because I've got the full thing. I can see 38 faces or 50 faces at one time on my screen. And that gives me a lot of information, even though they're tiny little faces on my screen. But I can see these faces, and I can see what they're doing. And our eyes are moving very, very swiftly over the screen. And we're getting a lot of information that way. And I then did a screenshot, and that was my registration. And I took my registration from those faces. And if they weren't there, they were absent. But that's my bit.
Glenn Hill.
Yeah, one of my chief complaints from the students was that both their video and their audio had very poor quality, simply because they decided to stay in their apartments or the dormitory, and they had poor Wi-Fi connections there. Now, even though the school had an option for them to come to the classrooms and get better strength, they wanted to be comfortable and sit in their own private homes. So it's real hard to get around that. And then you've got the ones that decide, well, my home is dirty and I don't have the brains to move my computer around to just show a blank wall. So it's tough.
At my school, the students were forbidden from going on campus.
Yeah,
Because
Those are all of the, sorry, Glenn, go.
I was just going to add, I mean, our school was nice enough to allow them to come to various classrooms and just make use of the Wi-Fi. Of course, they were spaced in there and that sort of thing.
That's all we have from chat for now, Bill.
Yeah, anyone else have anything to add?
Don't see any raised hands. There you go, John. And I do see so,
yeah, basically I did have a few people with Wi-Fi problems, and I always told them cable is better than Wi-Fi, and that seemed to to solve the problem. They never had the same problem the next week. Go buy yourself a cable. Oh, I got a cable over here. Let me go plug it in. That saves a lot of problems.
And we have a new hand up, Quemby.
Yeah, unmuted. Okay, so I just wanted to say that with the current situation, one of the biggest issues has been building community, some sense of community with the students. And so I just wanted to, anything we can do to get them connecting with each other. That is how I have encouraged participation and involvement and engagement. And even just a simple thing I did was when I called attendance, I'm lucky that my classes are all about 20 students-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. And each student had to say a whole sentence. They had to answer not just, hi, I'm here, but say a sentence. Like, for example, what did you have for breakfast? Or what did you watch on Netflix? Or what did you watch on TV yesterday? Just something very simple. What are you going to do after this class? Just any kind of a simple sentence, and that way everybody has to say something. And I have found over the years that they actually listen to each other, and that helps them get to know each other a little bit. So just simple stuff like that.
Paul, I'm going to let Bob Sanderson and Doug Gerald jump over you a bit because they haven't had a chance to speak yet. Bob Sanderson, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Just off of Quimby's point about trying to build community, I listened to a really good podcast yesterday from Cult of Pedagogy. I think it's number 152, talking about genuine, meaningful connections and making a point to keep track of and make it a point to connect with each of your students throughout the term. You may not be able to do it every single time, but for example, if I make a note of which 3 students I bring in or I connect with and have a short conversation with, possibly by bringing in people one at a time from the breakout room, that by building these or by purposefully focusing on that and keeping a record of when you connect and maybe write a couple of words of what you talked about, it helps you then solidify your relationship with students that may then help people turn their camera on, for example, a little more than they would have otherwise. Okay. So anyway, that again, that's Cult of Pedagogy. I'm pretty sure it's number 152. GMC's genuine, meaningful connection is what.
A couple of people have already confirmed that in the chat, Bob, and Kevin even dropped in the actual link. Thank you, Kevin.
Great, cool.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Douglas Gerald.
Okay, well, I do the same thing as Paul Shimizu. I encourage or require everybody to show their face. I haven't had too many problems. There's one girl who only shows the top of her head all the time, and I see the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge behind her. Well, I know she's there. Through the years, I've just decided that perhaps the best way to get students involved is to give them the choice of which questions to answer. So I say it's Hayai Monogachi time. And when I take roll, I prepare 20 questions, and the first person who answers the first question is marked down, and then the next person, and the next person, and the next person, which certainly gets the students involved, and I encourage them to answer the first question that they can answer easily. So it does tend to focus them. But I also wanted to say that I quite agree with Bob Sanderson, because I only teach first-year students, and these are students who've never met anybody else. They've never been on campus. They have no friends. Some of them come from out of the prefecture. So giving them time to actually bond in the breakout rooms and going in there and talking to them in small groups is great.
Okay, Kevin, if you can hit your raise hand button, I'll remember that you were there, but Paul's been waiting, so Paul, Go ahead. But I'll remember you, Kevin.
I actually just want to echo Quimby and Douglas about this building a community and asking lots of questions, and keeping the students on the ball, because they don't know who you're gonna who's going to be chosen, and you've got all their names up there. And it was amazing. And I just felt, after about 4 or 5 weeks, because it took me at least 4 or 5 weeks to get used to Zoom, I felt like I was running a class. But the students particularly liked breakout rooms, and they particularly liked being in 2 or 3, and the chance to speak about anything. And I was actually had quite long sessions. I did 10-minute and 15-minute sessions in the breakout rooms, and the students did have a long list of questions that they'd pre-prepared, because that was part of the process. They've got all these questions that they have to give answers to, and then they're asking the person in the breakout room. But of course they are going off topic. But the feedback I got back from the majority of my students is they loved the breakout rooms, and it gave them an opportunity to speak to other people. And I did at least 2 breakout room sessions per lesson. And they got, and because they were all random, they got to see a lot of different people during the course. And I would thoroughly recommend that, and to do as many mini breakout sessions as possible. It also allows you to go and get a cup of tea. And so these 15-minute sessions, because when you've got 30 kids in front of you on the screen and you're asking all these questions all the time, the pressure on us is phenomenal. You think there's pressure on them. You know, an hour or an hour and 15-minute Zoom session, you need an hour's lie down after that, because there's just so much pressure there, because the focus is so much on you. So that's my bit.
If I can just jump in very quickly as to what Paul said. If in the first few classes you make a habit of going into a few different students' breakout sessions, after that you don't have to. You can just go get a cup of tea, and they just think you're in someone else's session.
Yeah.
It's like the trick when you're in a big classroom and you ask a question, and you just pretend someone at the back of the room answered it. Like, yes, that's right.
Speaking of tricking your students, I have a bit of a solution. I've suggested this before in one of the Saturday sessions for the people who have a hard time getting their kids to turn on their cameras. And obviously this is a big problem. It's always being discussed even on OTJ. And in both of my universities, neither universities mandated either attendance or camera or audio usage. They told the instructors, you get what you get. Don't force the kids to do anything, because it was their policy. It's their private space. Everybody has their own rationality for it. But I was given a situation where it was up to me to figure out how to get these kids to turn on their cameras for maximum effect. And what I basically did was I told the kids as they were coming into the first class, where it's really important to set the precedent. I said, and by the way, I did this all in Japanese, but you can maybe get away with it in English, but I didn't. I did it all in Japanese. I said, okay, hey guys, really nice to see you here in the first class. Tell you what, I know that you're all there because I can see that your audio is on. I just want to do a mic check and a mic check and a camera check for your breakout rooms later. You can turn your cameras off if you want, but I just want you to turn them on. And I'm just going to say, good morning, Mr. Sato. Good morning, Ms. Suzuki. And I want you to say that back. You know, this is all in Japanese, but it's fairly easy to do. And what that creates is that they turn on their mics, their voices go out to everybody else. And if you're especially in gallery view, and I did encourage them to get into gallery view, I even showed them how to do it. They get this critical mass of cameras and mics all turning on. They get to see their peers' faces. And that makes them much less hesitant to actually show their faces to their peers. And that critical mass is very, very important to establish in the first class. If you don't establish in the first class, you get a culture in your class that says, oh yeah, in Cruz's class, nobody turns on their mic, so there's no way I'm turning mine on. But basically, I just told them it's a camera check, it's a mic check. And I did that all the way through the 15, 14 sessions, and they got used to it. And believe it or not, eventually, all those cameras, all those mics stayed on when I wanted them, and I actually had to turn mics off. There were the kids, you know, who did this, and there were the kids who did, you know, maybe a lot of the little bit of that, but mostly full-on headshots and actual just revealing themselves to the group. Glenn Hill.
Yeah, I had one kind of amusing thing to mention and then another serious one. The amusing thing was in my graduate school courses, I asked them, would you prefer, this was after one breakout room, would you prefer to be with groups of 2 or 3? And a couple of kids very strongly said, 2s, please, we want pairs. And I asked why. And they said, we can't follow the conversation when there's 3 people in the room, which kind of amused me. But on the more serious note was about a third of my graduate students are foreign students. Now, of course, nobody's met each other face to face. And I thought, based on all the other experiences I've had where the students are very eager to try making foreign friends, the video cameras would be on when they had the breakout rooms and a foreign student in there. And I did put a foreign student in as many rooms as I could. Didn't work. They were still very shy about it, even though the foreign students said that they tried prompting the students, hell, even just to speak. So it's tricky.
Daniel.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say that in one of my classes, this is like basically just an anecdote, but I in one of my classes, well, actually in all my classes, I do ask them to turn on their cameras, so they do. And then I was peeping, eavesdropping in on a breakout room, because I have my iPad in the room and I have my phone in the room and I have my earbuds on, and I don't always listen, but I was listening one time and I just heard students talking. They said, "Oh, I really like this class. Yeah. This is the one class where I can see my classmates." And that really struck me, right? Because that meant in almost all of their classes, they are forced to have their cameras off. Or it's just the default that everyone has their cameras off. And that really struck me. So I wouldn't force anyone to do it, but as my general practice, I just tend to say, hey, let's all turn our cameras on. And at least in my context, my institutions, I haven't had any pushback on that. Just wanted to share that.
I think it also has something to do. Oh, sorry, I forgot. It is now 6 o'clock. We are at the official end of time for the presentation, but there are no other presentations immediately after this. The only other session left on Monday is what should be a very interesting session by Nate Gildart, a Google expert on G Suite. So now that we're at 6 o'clock, normally I would end the recording, but Bill, did you want to say anything at the end of your session?
No, but I would like to, I mean, it would be great to hear from more people as to what we could do for active participation if our students come back and we're back in the classroom. We really didn't touch on that at all. But maybe that could be a session for another time. But I'm perfectly happy sticking around.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm perfectly happy sticking around too. And if you guys want to stick around, Bill and I will be here. We'll probably carry on the conversation. And seeing as how that's what Bill wants to do, I'm going to continue recording so that then we can take everyone's comments and ideas and actually keep it for posterity as well. So if you guys want to stick around, we're going to stick around. Kevin will have the next word.
Okay, 3 quick things just to continue on. Apart from Quenby's about community and Paul Chamizo about the breakout sessions, is that you can fine tune the breakout sessions different ways. And I do 4 or 5 usually during each session. And the breakouts you can randomize each time. And then other times you can just keep the same groups together and continue on with the same groups each time. And if you do that and you'll know which classes to do the mixing, and then the others which you continue on with each other so that they can really get to know each other well in that. And then, usually a lot of mixing at the beginning, and then toward the end, more of the same members of the breakout sessions during each daily session or each classroom session. The other thing is building community. A good idea is to have a session that's not linked to a class, where people, especially for first year students, where they can get to know each other without having, you know, all of the load of classroom interaction put on them, and do it in English. We do it here at my university. We have what's called a English lunch session, where you just get together and have conversation, and that's open to anybody. And so that gets a lot of cross classroom pollination, where students get to know each other and expand the idea of online learning outside of a classroom and more like in the hallway, where students can do it with each other. And finally, one last thing is, when you end up your session, you could just leave the session, but let the students talk to each other by themselves without having a teacher present, so that they can get to know each other. Those are the three things. Anyway, thank you.
And let's see, on the list is Glenn Hill and Paul Shimizu again, but I think Doug, were you waving a hand around?
I'm leaving.
Oh, okay.
Okay, see you then. Bye.
Hi, Doug.
Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Okay. So, Paul Shimizu, you're up.
One of the key issues for me with the classes I teach is students listening, and that's why Bill and I developed this thing. And Quemby was talking about a sense of building a sense of community, and the biggest one that you can build is by asking a question to all of the students at the same time. And if they have this, then the students, you could give multiple choices. You know, you could just say the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, or more than 3, and then you could simply ask the question, how many brothers do you have? And A is 0, and B is 1, and C is 2, and D is 3 or more. And they could hold this up next to them. The point is, this is free. You can download this on the internet, and you can get a template of this, and it's B5 size, and many of the students do have access to a computer, and they can download a template of this and make this thing so that you could build some questions and have these whole class activities where you're speaking to all of the students at the same time. Did you get up at 7 o'clock or before 7 o'clock or after 7 o'clock this morning? Yes or no? And you've suddenly got a whole class participating. Simple. Just
okay,
go to the Capture Me site, and there's a template there, and it also gives the students something to do. You could even challenge them to make a very good one, because the template is there. It's not difficult. You just cut round and you fold the thing in half over a card, and you could actually say, oh, okay, well, have you made this? You know, you could give them an actual task to do, and it's free, so there's no money in it.
Okay, Richard Bailey has something you want to say. He hasn't joined yet. So, Rich, I'm going to get you to the front of the queue.
My mic on? Yep. Okay. One thing I taught an elective class, elective community class this past semester. I used the book called Topic Talk from EFL Press. It's pretty well known. It's really nice. It's got bilingual X, Y, and Z. And I found that book, that style of activities, worked really well in breakout rooms. Obviously, Topic Talk, each unit, like food, sports, work, school, whatever, has 13 questions that kind of start out easy and then get more difficult. But I found that it was a really, I mean, it's not natural, obviously, but it's a way where the students have to ask and answer the questions about a common topic that does allow them to find some common ground, you know, like what sports do you like, what foods do you like, and because there's 13 questions, it turns into more than just the token one question answer kind of thing. And you could do anything related to that. I did things with forms in Microsoft Teams. I used there's an audio transcript that I use for a speaking homework activity, but that's all extension too. What I was thinking is, if you don't have access to the book, or you can't use it for copyright issues, what you could do is you could make something similar where you could come up with a list of 10 questions related to the topic at hand, the topic of the class, and use this as the speaking activity for them to work with, because a lot of the basic to intermediate students, they don't have the confidence or the fluency to actually engage in a conversation. But if you give them the framework, you're increasing the chance that they actually will do it, and it gives them the chance to interact. So that would be one idea or activity that I might suggest.
And Glenn.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about the community building so much, but with the big blue button, there's not just the public chat like we can see here, but there's another item called shared notes. And the big difference is with shared notes, there's no names given to whoever's typing, and they can all type at the same time. But this could work with either that or a public chat. And then this is what I'm talking about. I use it to get probably the more vocal students or the more active, interested students just to answer questions like reviewing what we did last week. What were the 3 main points? Quickly type them into the shared notes. And yeah, I get maybe 25, 30% of the students doing it, but at least I get some doing it. The shy people can stay shy. And I'll make conversation while they're typing. I'll make a few jokes, whether it's about a spelling mistake or some grammar thing, but I'll use it for reviewing something, not every lesson. Or like in the very first lesson or two, I used it as an icebreaker. I basically said, what do you do to de-stress? Everybody wrote on this. And it got to be really cool. I mean, very few people said, I sleep. You got to see a few kids that said they played a musical instrument. And they even asked me some questions later on when I was playing music, like a kid who played sax asked me, hey, Mr. Hill, I know this is not part of the class, but can you tell me who's the sax player on that music today? But anyway, just use the public chat or your shared notes to just get some immediate answers back from the students. They don't have to speak.
Bob.
Yeah, couple things I do for community building and participation, especially for first-year students who've never met in person. It's quite a challenge and daunting to show their pictures sometimes. And so what I do often is especially morning classes, they're sleepy, and I say, anybody sleepy? Yeah, well, how about some asakara, morning karaoke, asa karaoke, right? And so it's, who's got a song you want to sing? We'll play some YouTube. It helps me get to know them. What songs, who do you know? What do you like to listen to? And if they have it, it's community building. They're sharing songs. Another thing I'll do, once we do that a little bit together, I'll break them into groups. I've got a class with 7 guys, 7 women, 7 girls. I'll put the girls in one room, the guys in another. The girls will, in their breakout room, they'll have a little joshikai, and they'll all show their faces. The guys will have a different vibe, different music in their place, you know, and they're, anyway, so I'm teaching them a way to learn English that's fun, that hopefully is intrinsically motivating. And then another thing I do is we'll get back to, when they come back together, maybe the girls will keep their cameras on and then the guys will turn theirs on too. But another thing I do is I'll do what's called popcorn reading. We have a reading passage and then some questions, and after I've introduced the topic by, you know, showing visuals of various sorts and talking about the topic, we'll read it, but in any order. Read whenever you feel like it. Read one sentence, and then every time they read, I'm keeping track of who's participating. And I don't make a big deal of it, but I notice who's always participating, who isn't. So later, if I wanted to, and for example, we'll do the questions, but in any order. Anybody choose whatever number you feel confidence in and do it. But anyway, that's one way I think that helps build confidence. And later, if I wanted to, I could put the very participatory people in one breakout room, let them go. They know the pattern of working that way. And then the other ones I'll teach in a little more directed way, possibly. So that, especially in a bigger classroom, might make sense, I think. So anyway, those are a few ideas of what I do. That they love it. The morning karaoke is a hit. Okay.
John.
Yeah, I have a question. You talked about keeping the session open, and I think that's a good thing to do. Although I teach 2 classes in a row, and so like there's a 10-minute break in between, and I have to shut down the one Zoom and open up the next Zoom.
Me too.
Is there a way to, besides running on 2 separate computers, is there a way to actually keep one Zoom open while you open another Zoom? No. Okay, I didn't think there was. So, okay, that was my question.
Okay, Frank, little Frank. There you go. Comments or anything else from anyone else? Nope. What do you think, Bill? Hang on for a bit. Wait. Whoa, we got some. Let's see there. It's John again. John.
I was just thinking about participation. One of the things that I did early on is when the students went into breakout rooms, I had to actually pretend that I was the leader for 1 week, and then show them what the leader was supposed to do. And then the next week they'd try it, and if it didn't work, I think I had to do that twice before they kind of figured out what exactly they were supposed to do and all that. But the other thing is they're in groups of 4, but there's like eight groups, and so what I'll do is each week I'll switch. Okay, so group 1 and group 2 are together this week, and next week it's group 1 and group 3, and group 1 and group 4, and change it up so they have different people to talk to. And I think that during this next semester, I'm going to rearrange the groups so they're not in the same groups. They'll still have the same role that they, so the role doesn't change for that first class, but they'll be all in different groups than what they were in the last time. So I think that will maybe help them to learn some new people.
Quick question from the chat. Madeline Sakachta asks, can you assign someone host and leave? Well, either Bill or I could, but we don't mind staying, so we're going to stay.
I think the question meant like in your classroom.
Oh, yeah. That's actually one thing you can do, John. You can make one of the kids host.
But I think like then when you try to start your next class, Zoom will say, you've already got one session going right now. Do you want to end that session and start this one? And so you just click the button and,
Well, I do have 2 laptops, so potentially I could leave the one running on the one laptop and come back and close it when people have left totally, and have the other one running on the start the other one on the other laptop.
I think it might be tied to your account though, not your laptop specifically.
So what you could do in that case then, John, is to get 2 Zoom accounts, come in with the second account on the second laptop, make the second laptop host, and get back to work on the first main computer that you're on. Or you can do that on your phone. You can assign a phone as a host, although I've never done that, but theoretically you could, and you can pass it off to the phone. However, the phone itself also needs to have a separate account. Something to try.
Richard Bailey says in the chat, Zoom will kick you out if you log in to another computer with the same account.
The other thing that you can do is just pass it to one of the kids, of course. Just pass hosting off to a good, trustworthy kid and say, listen, I know you're a cool kid and nothing's going to happen while you're here. And why don't you just hang on to the room until most people have to go to their next Zoom class in 10 minutes. You guys can have a bit of fun just talking to each other without me around here. Pass it off to a kid and they'll take over for it.
Yeah, I could, but yeah, I need to open up the other, the next Zoom, and start admitting people to that, to that new Zoom, and I only have 10 minutes between classes. So if I keep the one open, then it's a little hard,
No, if you pass hosting, the actual host's control over to the kid, they become host and they accept hosting. You can leave. You're now just a regular participant in the meeting.
Okay, so I can leave and I can close down that meeting and
They're
open.
the host.
And if I want to, I can come back to that meeting at some point in the future and see if anyone's still there. I guess.
As long as you hold on to the URL, and when you come back.
Yeah, it's a recurring URL and all that. So I know what the.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I might try that and see whether anybody. I don't know what their schedule is. The first period people might have classes in the second period, and I haven't polled the people to see. What
you could
what their schedule.
You could also end class early, like 10, 15 minutes, and leave them in there.
Yeah.
But ask them to stay and chitty chat. But you're going to go. Sure, some are going to bail out, but at the same time, if you're showing them, because it's all about building rapport. If you don't show them that you care, if you aren't the cool teacher,
yeah,
they aren't going to give you jack. So if you end class 10 minutes early and say, hey guys, I'm going to go, but can you guys hang out and just chitty chat? Hey, some are going to bail, but some are like, wow, this is awesome. We can talk shit about the teacher. Oh, sorry. We can talk about the teacher, or they can talk about life, but you're developing that rapport with them that is going to probably result in better outcomes as the class goes on.
Yeah, as long as they don't remember that the recording is on, they can talk shit, right? So
just a bit of venting.
Turn off the recording, I guess, when I do that. So
just a bit of venting on my part. The amount of effort that we, as the instructors of these classes, that put into trying to create community and trying to cater at least a little bit to the psychological needs of the students, is yet another thing that we have taken upon ourselves, and is something that is glaringly obvious that the university is not trying to do. They are not trying to keep the clubs alive. They are not trying to keep the circles alive. They're not trying to reach out to their kids to make sure, hey, are you guys okay? I know you're probably a little bit more prone to being depressed these days. Nothing, absolutely nothing from the two universities in terms of trying to help these kids, through their mental health and well-being through this ERT. And it's all on us. They're not doing anything. And it just pisses me off.
I think it depends on the university. My school's been sending out emails to the students, and
really,
yeah.
How about circles and clubs where they are trying to attend to the kids'
circles? I only know about the English circle, and they just decided themselves to start Zoom sessions.
Good. Oh, you mean just now?
I think they were doing it the entire semester.
Good.
But because it's the English circle and I'm involved with that, they invited me to some of the sessions. But so I don't know what the other circles are doing. Sports circles, obviously, they're not allowed on campus to practice, but they might be jogging together if they live near each other. I don't know.
I know that some of my kids, when they show up on video, they're still doing kendo. Some of them, they're still doing judo, but there's no indication or clear indication there was actually the school's kendo club. Might have been a community kendo club. For all I know, the kid was actually in Kochi at home at his kendo club, doing everything through Zoom. But it just kind of bugs me that's something yet again that's on our shoulders, and it's not something that's a bit more clearly being made an effort by the universities. What do you think, Bill?
Okay, let's wrap it up. Thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Bill, big round of applause for Mr. Bill Pellet. Love it. And I will now kill recording. Thank you very much. Thank you.